Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, my name's Amanda. So in today's What's for Dinner video, I'm actually using the Outlander Kitchen Cookbook. So some Scottish recipes for you. And this is actually part of a cookbook collab hosted by Southern Wife Everyday Life. I'll have all those details down below and I'll tell you a little more in a minute, but let's get started on these bangers and mash. So this bangers and mash has a slow cooked onion gravy, and that's what we're working on right now. I'm just slicing up these onions. I'm using 4 onions. The recipe called for 3, but I really like onions, so I thought I'd go ahead and do 4. That way we had plenty. And as you can see, I've got them all sliced up here, and they're going in the crock pot. This was such a neat way to do caramelized onions. I've heard of this before, but I've never tried it. So I'm really excited to do this again and maybe make some French onion soup, because I love French onion soup. And I've just got some butter in there, a sprig of thyme, as well as some olive oil going in there. And these are just going to slow cook on low in the crock pot for several hours. That way it gets all nice and caramelized. And when it gets done, they're all delicious looking, as you can see there. So this turned out really well, and a hands-off way to get caramelized onions. So for the mashed potatoes, the recipe actually calls for steaming the potatoes. I've never done that before, so that was new. And these are the sausages I'm using. I'm only making a smaller version of this because not many people in my house like sausage. So I just made a couple of them. Now, I will say that that really worked out well for steaming them, but you got to keep an eye on them, because the bottom started scorching and the potatoes were fine, but I didn't want to mash them in there because I didn't want to, bring that scorch up to it. So I moved them to a different pot and added the butter, and we're going to add some half and half to that as well and get that all combined. Now, what was interesting is the recipe for the mashed potatoes actually called for you to mash them before you put anything in them. I've actually never done that. Whenever I do mashed potatoes, I always mash them together with the ingredients. So, and this worked out well both times I did that for the other recipe as well. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this video is part of a cookbook collab hosted by Southern Wife Everyday Life. I'll have her channel linked below, as well as the entire playlist. I'm excited to see what everybody's made now out of their cookbooks. So we're going to finish up this onion gravy here. Now, the recipe actually called for it to be finished in the crock pot, but I actually did this over a couple of days. I cooked the onions the day before and then did the gravy the next day, so I did it in a pot on the stove. But I added in some flour there, and now I'm adding in some chicken stock as well as some tomato powder. The recipe actually called for tomato paste in like the homemade stock she used. So I thought this would actually work fine because the tomato powder would kind of, add that tomato essence to it. And I'm also adding in a little bit of pepper and salt to get that going and get it good and seasoned. And you're just going to whisk this together. Keep kind of whisking and combining until it kind of comes to, where it's lightly bubbling and gets all thickened and good. So here we have the sausage, the mashed potatoes, and the gravy. Guys, this was really delicious, and that sausage was amazing. So if you haven't tried that sausage, it's from Kroger. It was so good. I know that's probably not typical sausage to use for bangers and mash, but we really enjoyed it. So highly recommend that recipe. And next up, we have slow-cooked chicken fricassee. So this recipe uses bone-in chicken thighs. Also threw 1 breast in there, almost threw 2, but it was going to fill my pot up too much, so I didn't get 2 of them in there. But you're just dredging them in flour mixed with pepper and salt. And then I just kind of made, laid them to the side while I got them all done. And then you're actually going to heat some butter and olive oil in a pan and sear those on both sides. So you're just kind of creating a little bit of a crust. I will say in the crock pot, obviously it kind of is not there anymore on the chicken, but it does go into the sauce, and I'm assuming that probably helps a little bit with the sauce for this recipe. And of course, we'll get to the sauce here in just a little bit, but once we get all these seared, we're going to transfer them to the crock pot. Now, I'm curious, do y'all watch Outlander? I actually am going to give you a little bit of a review at the end of this of the cookbook. And I do share with y'all, I don't watch Outlander. We did try it. My daughter and I actually tried it. She's 21, but and it was just a little much for us, so we kind of quit. But it did have a really good storyline, and it seems like really interesting. And she loves like all the costuming and things like that. So which I always think that stuff's pretty neat too. And so I don't know, do y'all watch that? And if so, do you like it? But what's really neat about this cookbook is that she kind of has like stuff to go along with all the recipes from the books, because Outlander is also a book series. And like if you're a big fan, I could see that being really fun to like recreate some of your, these recipes along with some of this, the scenes from the book that you might like. She also has a website, so I'll link that down below. The author does, and she also has a lot of the recipes on there. So I'll go ahead and make sure to link that so that y'all can go check those out and link all these recipes if they have. I think they have all of them on there. Now, this wasn't in the recipe to deglaze the pan, but it's just part of me from watching Food Network forever that you got to deglaze the pan. There's a lot of that fond on there and you don't want to leave that behind, so I did that too. And then I'm just chopping up some veggies here. Now, I will tell you, I had a hard time fitting the veggies it called for. I mean, I feel like I got them right. I think I did 3 carrots, and then I tried to guess on the poundage of the potatoes. It's kind of hard to get that for sure. But I did, and like there was mushrooms and pearl onions, and it actually called for a pound of pearl onions, but I actually used a 12-ounce bag of frozen ones. But I had a hard time fitting all these in here, and actually what I ended up doing was creating a kind of a separate pan to go in the oven of some chicken I had left over along with these veggies and that type of thing. So you'll see that in a minute. I just went ahead and put a little bit of lemon juice on those potatoes and mushrooms and then throwing those in the crock pot. And we're also going to add the carrots and everything. I probably should have used my bigger crock pot. I have I think it's like a 10 quart. This is a 6 quart. And I think the 10 quart probably everything would have had plenty of room. I could have got everything in there. But I've got the pearl onions going on top. And then I'm also going to add some butter and some bay leaf and garlic and some thyme sprigs over there too. So that all goes in there, and this cooks for several hours. And I'm also going to put that, again, all that delicious fond with the chicken broth and some white wine. And actually that's the first time I've ever cooked with wine. I tasted it to see what it tasted like. I was not impressed. I did not like the way it tasted, but it didn't taste bad in the food, so that was good. And so here is the one I talked about putting in the oven. This was really good too. I just put some of that Kinders, or Kinders, I'm not sure I say that, buttery garlic herb on there, and this was really delicious as well. So we had leftovers for both these meals, and that was fun because obviously it's nice to have leftovers because then you don't have to cook the next day or something, or you can at least have lunch or whatever. So now it's time to check that crock pot, and everything's done in there. You're just going to remove the bay leaves and the sprigs of thyme. It actually said to remove the garlic, but my daughter loves garlic when it's cooked like that, so I left that in there. You're just going to scoop it all out and put it on. I used a baking tray. You can use a baking dish, but it said to broil it, and I wanted to make sure I used a baking sheet because it's just easier on the broiler. And so I'm just draining that out. We're going to make the sauce from that liquid that's reserved there. Now, you're just going to broil it just for a little bit. It actually says to keep it warm in an oven at 300 degrees. And then you just broil it for just a little bit just to kind of get, crisp up that chicken. It doesn't really, in my opinion, it doesn't make it crispy enough to necessarily eat the skin, which we don't really do anyways, but I know some people do. And, but it added a little more color to it and everything, kind of, made everything look a little more, that deeper, richer color to it. So we're going to go ahead and get started on this sauce. I've got some egg yolks going into some half and half. It actually called for whipping cream, but I was out, so I used half and half. And then we've got the drippings on the stove, and I've got that heating and coming to a boil. You actually want to put some of that in the egg mixture and get that kind of tempered so that it doesn't curdle. And then you pour that in there and then whisk it. It said constantly for 5 minutes until basically you're going to, get everything heated through, cooked well and thickened and everything. And then you're going to be ready for your sauce. Now see, that chicken looks so much prettier now than it did before. And it even adds to the veggies too, that little bit of color to them a little more. So I think it definitely was a nice step. Now here we're just spooning that sauce over our food, and this was really delicious, y'all. I've never tried anything like this exactly, especially like I said, using white wine or anything. And we really enjoyed this. My daughter absolutely loved it, and we really enjoyed the one that roasted in the pan too. So I definitely recommend this recipe. It was really good. And it was fairly easy too. It was a little bit of extra steps, but still fairly easy. Now, next up we have shepherd's pie, or technically what I made was cottage pie because I'm going to actually use ground beef instead of lamb. Now, I'm just getting some onions in here. It said to grate them, so I thought it would just be easier to do it in my Ninja. And so I'm just going to process them till they're very, very small. And then I'm also going to do the same with the carrots. And honestly, after eating this, I probably would just dice them next time. I think this was a unnecessary step. Maybe if you had people who didn't like chunks of vegetables and you were wanting to kind of sneak it in there, that would be good. But I actually enjoy chunks of vegetables and stuff like that. So next time when I make this, I'm definitely just going to dice these instead of making them so fine. And actually, we talked about maybe even adding celery next time, peas, green beans. We're definitely going to play with this and add some more veggies because we really like the veggies and stuff like this. Now, this step was not in the cookbook exactly because it called for you to brown the hamburger. I already have hamburger in my freezer that I brown up and package and freeze. So I actually have a video on that and I'll link that below. But I just sauteed the veggies since I wasn't already cooking the meat and sauteing it with that. And then after I sauteed these and got these all cooked like they're supposed to be, then I added the meat. And I'm just adding my seasonings in there as well and getting this all stirred up and combined well. And I tell y'all that having that hamburger in the freezer like that is so handy. So I definitely recommend doing that because when it's already cooked, it's just one less step you have to do. And I've just got some garlic going in here. You could also use fresh garlic. I just thought I'd use jarred for this one. And then again, just mixing it well, getting that hamburger going in there. And then I'm just going to let that mix together because as you can see, I didn't get it completely thawed in the microwave. It still has a little bit of ice crystals there, and that's just fine because it's going into that hot pan. And we're also going to add some tomato paste and stir that really well and try to incorporate that in there. And then the recipe talks about deglazing with red wine. I did not use that. I used just some beef broth instead. So once I got this mixed well together, I just added that broth in there. And there's also going to be a little more broth called for here in a minute as we kind of keep going through these steps here. Now, there are a few steps to this, but it really is super simple. It's not anything, overly difficult or anything like that. And, once this kind of cooks for just a little bit, we're going to add in our beef stock as well as some Worcestershire sauce. And I may have butchered that word, I'm not sure, but I think that's one that a lot of people struggle with. And we're just going to keep on cooking that a little bit. And then, of course, obviously season with salt and pepper as you would like. And then while this kind of finishes up, we're going to get started on the mashed potatoes. Now, I did not follow the directions for the potatoes. I missed that it said to steam them, which I tried earlier in that other recipe. And I did not notice that in there. So I boiled them, but that worked fine. And I'm just mashing them first. Like I said, the book actually calls for you to mash them before you put the ingredients in. And then I've got some butter going in here and some egg yolks. And this actually didn't call for any kind of milk or cream, and I was really surprised. So I was kind of like, is this going to work out? But it really did. And we're also going to add in some Parmesan cheese to this too. And that was really good. I guess between the butter, the eggs, and the Parmesan cheese, it still kind of gets, all nice and good and creamy. And I did use yellow potatoes, and I feel like they are kind of a little more creamy sometimes too. Now, once we get that Parmesan cheese in there, we're just going to stir that really well and get it all well and combined. And then we're going to actually move our shepherd's pie, like bottom mixture, or cottage pie, into our baking dish. Now, I will tell you that when I added some little bit of salt and pepper there too. Now, the actual recipe called for a 2-quart baking dish. The baking dish I used was 3 quarts, and it was full. I mean, like I was kind of concerned it could bubble over. So if you make this recipe, I would make sure to use probably a little larger dish. I don't think 2-quart would have cut it with this one. And so I've just got that going in there. Like I said, we're going to top that with the mashed potatoes. I actually had never made a shepherd's pie, cottage pie, anything like that. Have y'all ever made one? And is it something you enjoy? Maybe tell me what all kinds of veggies you enjoy in yours, because I definitely want to try some different combinations because this was really good. We really liked it a lot, especially that Parmesan in the potatoes. Man, it just really tasted good. And now my daughter, she actually mentioned that she thought it would be good because you actually are going to top this with some Parmesan cheese. She thought it would be good to broil it next time and get it even a little more toasty on top. And I think we may try that too. She likes it when it gets kind of almost like that little crunchiness of cheese on the top. So that I really do like the Parmesan for sure. That was delicious. And so this is going to go in an oven and bake for about 25 to 30 minutes at 425 degrees. And I decided to go ahead and throw in some other veggies there. So I've got some cauliflower and broccoli with just some garlic powder, pepper, onion powder, those type of seasonings. And then I put that in beside that, so they cooked at both the same time. I actually left them both in there the same amount of time, so I had dinner ready as soon as those finished. So that was really handy, and we love roasted veggies. It's just But it just takes them into a whole new level, I feel like, of deliciousness. And so here's that shepherd's pie or cottage pie for this one. But y'all, this was really good. I really encourage you to make this. I'm really thankful that she's got those recipes on her website. So I will, like I said, make sure to link those below so that y'all can, go and try those recipes too. But this was a delicious meal, very much comfort food with that shepherd's pie or cottage pie. And have any of y'all actually made shepherd's pie with lamb? I've never had lamb, so I'm kind of curious what that would be like, but I've never had it. And like I said, that cheesy goodness on top, it was so good. So stay tuned for my book review. So hey everyone, I wanted to walk you through this cookbook just a little bit, just in case you want to get this cookbook. You can kind of look inside of it. I know it's hard to know what a cookbook kind of looks like unless you actually get to look through it. So I will also have the playlist for the collab linked below in the description box, as well as Southern Life Everyday Lives channel. So make sure you check out that. But let's go ahead and take a look at this cookbook. So it's Outlander Kitchen. Of course, it's the official Outlander Companion Cookbook. I think she also has another one, and I just found out today actually that she apparently has a website. So I should be able to link most of these recipes, I believe, with her website. So of course there's, contents page and all that good stuff. And there are quite a few pictures in here of the food, and I always like that. So she talks about some pantry items and some equipment and things like that that are good to have on hand. She even goes into like grinding nuts and grains and seeds, as well as like knife skills and stuff like that. So I thought that was really neat. Now, you're probably gonna see some of my markers in here, but so I think just about, like, there's pictures. I think most recipes have pictures. If not on that page, you may find it on like a compilation page or something like that. But there's some really interesting recipes in here. There's some that I feel like would be kind of harder to find ingredients. Like there was one for that called for oxtail, and I don't think I can get that here, I'm pretty sure. But there's fish tacos, oyster stew. There's all kinds of neat stuff. This fish pie was on my list too. I've got that marked there. And just lots of neat, like, she even, with each recipe, she actually goes into the, like this talks about Jenny's hair pie, and it's from Voyager chapter 5, to us a child is given. So like she actually goes into, sorry, that was my phone. She goes into like where, she kind of pulled that from the books, which I thought was really neat too. So it's definitely an interesting cookbook. We actually don't watch Outlander. That's the shepherd's pie too. But we kind of tried to start, but it was a little much for us. So the story seems really good, and I kind of would, like to watch it, but it was a little much for us. But I thought this would be a fun cookbook, some Scottish things. I also want to make these Scotch eggs. And so you may see some of these recipes later on as well in another video. So if you enjoyed this video, guys, I'd love it if you give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, I'd love it if you'd subscribe and join my YouTube family. I do all kinds of what's for dinner, fun recipe videos. I'm all about the food content. So definitely subscribe if you enjoy. And I hope y'all have a blessed day wherever you are. And I'll see you in the next one.